Welcome back to the Burnout Break Room, the podcast that's like a break room, but helpful, where we look at burnout through a realistic lens, talk about ways to take a break from the grind, and spill the tea.
I'm Caitlin Truhella, creativity coach and speaker.
And I'm Lyndie LauraAura, licensed therapist and certified career coach. We're your hosts, and thank you for joining us here in the Burnout Break Room.
This episode is brought to you by Loop Earplugs. As the winner of the Red Dot Award for product design, Loop is globally recognized for its innovation in earwear, promising long-lasting ear protection. Whether they're for focus, fun, or better sleep, you'll find durable quality and premium comfort in every pair. I personally have used Loop earplugs for years, especially in my days in living in college dorms. They saved my life in more ways than one, especially in terms of getting sleep, and I still use them today. Use our link to get 15% off your next purchase today and live life at your volume. Lean into everything you love that's loud with bold, noise-reducing earwear. Thank you, Loop. How you doing, Lyndie?
I am good, Caitlin. I'm a little tired, not gonna lie. First of all, it's very dreary here on the East Coast. Lots of actually really needed rain. We've enjoyed the most beautiful August I have ever experienced. It was like beautiful blue skies for like all of August, most of September, but of course we needed the rain. So it's good that it's here. I'm just
Lovely.
coming back from a conference, a psychology conference at Boston College, and my brain feels like mush. So I apologize in advance if I don't make sense. How about you, Caitlin?
Well, first of all, the no apology needed, because every time that we can show up, even if it's not at 100%, we are still moving forward, and that's still honoring our energy levels, which of course is not only important here in the break room, but everywhere we go. So I think that's always great to reinforce that message. I am I am definitely living that message today as well. Post move myself, I'm officially in Los Angeles,
Mm.
and yeah, I'm sore in places that I didn't know I had.
Uh-huh.
But even I think the other side of that too is recognizing and even, taking time to sit with that sense of accomplishment that we get from what we do that, has made us tired, essentially,
Mhm.
because there is a lot of satisfaction to be had in good work, a job well done. I am taking this as an opportunity to spend more time in that appreciation rather than just, accomplish this thing, great. What's next? Moving on to the next thing, which I have a very bad habit of doing.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Doesn't relate to me at
Right.
all.
No, but I'm also very happy to hear that you had a great time at the conference, and I hope we get to hear a little bit more about that too.
Absolutely.
So today we have the absolute joy of having LauraAura on the podcast. LauraAura is a dynamic keynote speaker, personal growth coach, and host of the Gutsy Podcast, a top 100 show helping people own their desires and take gutsy action. With over 18 years as a business owner and a decade of speaking experience, she's helped countless individuals and teams break through hesitation and move boldly toward what they want. Laura, welcome to the break room. It's so wonderful
Hello.
to have you.
It's so great to be here. Thanks for having me.
I will say, LauraAura, I just got done listening to a couple of fabulous episodes of the Gutsy podcast. I highly recommend that folks listen to this. One in particular, Power Back 254, Everyone, please go listen to this right now. It's a little over 20 minutes. Where are you conforming to fit in? LauraAura, I want to hear more about your story and what kind of brought you to the Gutsy podcast. But I just want to say, like, what a powerful message you're putting out into the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing it. It's kind of cool. I'm hearing more often than not. I'm like, where did you learn about the Gutsy podcast? And so many women are like, my therapist recommended it. And I take that to the highest honor. I hold that very dear to my heart, because if the fantastic work that you are doing is being supported by the message that I'm putting out, I think that's a win-win all around. So thank you for listening and for sharing.
Absolutely. And LauraAura, I want to talk about that podcast specifically, actually, but also I'd love to hear more about you and like what brought you to this work.
Yeah, it's been a wild journey. I will say that for sure. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. So, long story short, I've been a business owner for 18 years. It's been a minute and a half. I did not start out as a speaker or a coach. I actually started out in graphic design. So my background, my history is in graphic design. My very first job was working at the phone book, designing ads for the Yellow Pages. So you can imagine it was just as exciting as it sounds. I knew that I wanted to do design, but I did not want to continue to do it there. So when I was 6.5 months pregnant, I quit that job to start my first business, which was a branding agency. So that was one of my first early gutsy moves that I can put a pin in. People thought I was crazy. What about your stability? What about this? What about that? And I'm like, yeah, but I'm miserable. I'm limited. I feel unappreciated, and I have a whole lot more to give. So I figured out how to launch a business, and I did that. So I ran that agency for 16 years, but alongside running the agency, I found myself in these like really beautiful pockets of information, pockets of conversation, almost like being in a break room, right? An unintentional breakout break room where we were working with entrepreneurs. And I found that like we would have like the normal meeting, right? The talk about the branding and the website and all the beautiful things that we were creating together. But then after that meeting, the owner would often pull me to the side and be like, Laura, do you have a second? And in that space, they wanted to talk about the stuff that terrified them that they couldn't share with anybody else. The big idea that they had that everyone else in their world was questioning to death, how are they going to do this? The shift that they wanted to make that felt risky or gutsy that everyone else was questioning. And I just found in that space, I'm like, I feel alive in these conversations. I love the depth. I love the real. I run towards vulnerability instead of away from it. And when they left those meetings, they knew what to do next, or they just felt like they could do it. They didn't need permission, but they needed to hear permission. So I figured if they're feeling like that, and I know I feel like that, maybe other entrepreneurs feel like that too. And I figured, I was like, I want to start interviewing them and like actually putting these stories out into the world. So 11-ish years ago, I launched at the time what was called the Green Couch Project, where it was a whole production. These entrepreneurs came in and we had these vulnerable conversations and shared it out with the world. Turns out not just a few people feel the same way. Every entrepreneur has some relatability to one of these stories or all of them. So it grew. I wanted to do more of it. But the cost of the production, all that was just too much. So I'm like, okay, well, how can I do more of this and lower my cost? I'll figure out how to launch a podcast. So I bought a $25 headset off of Amazon. I figured out how to use GarageBand, and I changed the Green Couch Project into the Gutsy Podcast. And that was 7 years ago now at this point. And alongside that, I started to speak. I started to go to like Chamber of Commerce and Lunch and Learns, and companies were having me come in and talk to their teams. And, I just thought I would do branding forever. And I loved it until I didn't. COVID changed a lot of things. There was a lot to face with realizing that I had unintentionally built my business off the backbone of my insecurities. Everything looked fantastic on paper, but I was miserable and literally sick every single day. And I just got to a point like, I got to make a decision. What do I want? What do I actually want? And so my passion for branding started to diffuse, and my passion for speaking and coaching women and leaders increased. And I got to a point where I had a breakdown, an actual ugly ass breakdown. But I admitted to myself for the first time ever that I don't want to do this anymore. So I did that in July of 23. By December, it was sold. 2 months later, I sold the commercial building that we had fully intended on building out. I got rid of everything that didn't belong anymore. Everything that was out of alignment had to go. And now I'm full time. I'm all in on speaking and coaching, and I've never been happier.
I'm getting chills, Caitlan. I mean, how much does this align with like the conversation we were just like? It's weird.
The universe always knows when we're supposed to talk.
Certainly, absolutely. Laura, the alignment is just off the charts and it's unbelievable. And thank you so much for sharing your story, because as an entrepreneur myself, I could not align more with what you're saying, especially in these spaces where we want to build something and we have different ways of wanting to go about that. But there's so many different voices out there that talk about the prescribed way that we can do these things, the tried and true method, and if you just use my formula, then this will work for you as well. And all of these things look great on paper, but then the reality of those things is not making you happy and is not serving you. And it takes an incredible amount of guts to use the namesake of your podcast. Yeah, it takes a lot of guts to forge your own path, to do it your own way. And what a lot of people don't know or see what happens behind the scenes is even people in your most immediate circles can either have doubts about what you're doing or maybe don't understand it. And it can also make this kind of journey very lonely.
For sure. Listen, if you just do this, here's what I did, and if you just replicate my 8 steps, then you'll have the same success. And it's like, oh my gosh, I want to beat my head off against a wall. It's not to say that there aren't pieces in there that can work for you. I mean, clearly it has worked for someone in some way. But I think the biggest part about that is having the discernment to know what works for you, what feels good, and where can I be influenced? Where can I be inspired by this? And then how can I make that my own? I've gotten wrapped up in that so many times. And it's like, it has to feel good to you. It has to make sense to you, because otherwise you're replicating somebody else's success on a journey that's completely different than yours. And then what are you left with? You feel like you wasted money, you wasted time, this didn't actually work, what's wrong with me? And it triggers this whole spiral of, mental doubt upon yourself. And it's like, be inspired by what somebody else is doing and showing you. Take the pieces, but mold it into your own.
Laura, the piece that felt so chilling to me was you called this out, actually, because Caitlan and I often have like really fabulous, like open up to each other conversations, and then we press record, and yeah, I'm not going to share everything about my life with everyone, with the whole world. And so sometimes we just need to catch up as like humans. But in this particular conversation, what we were talking about was my experience at this conference that I went to, that I will tell you chewed me up and spat me out about 85 times in 4 days, and for so many different reasons, which I do want to unpack a little bit, if that's okay. But
of course,
what Caitlan and I were talking about was there were the conversations that were happening in these sessions that were literally with a microphone in your hand being recorded. You can go listen to them now. And so that's where everyone was like having the very intellectual, these were PhDs and psychoanalysts, which is a whole mood, let me tell you. I've never been so grateful not to have a doctorate in my life. And then there were the conversations we were having off to the side. And I was struck by just how intimate and vulnerable these conversations were, in a way that I've never experienced before in my life. in a way that made me question, am I oversharing? Right? Because I would share something about my life and then they would match that energy and share a vulnerability. And it felt so powerful and it felt like so needed in the moment that we're in, but so vulnerable that it made me question, like, did I do something wrong? Right? Like, it was immediately followed by that shame that we all know happens after being vulnerable, that I need to retreat. Right? But what struck me was I got this sense, that there's something happening under the surface in the world right now where people are. I almost get the sense like we need to access intimacy and love and compassion and connection, and it's not happening up here, right? And by up here, I know we're on a podcast. I'm pointing to like the kind of prefrontal cortex. Let's have big ideas. Let's think together. It's the let's feel together and let's be open and raw with each other in a way that's respectful and not taking advantage. And so when you talked about the Green Couch Project and your Gutsy podcast, it almost felt like, were you like listening to our conversation? So I'm curious to know like what your experience has been with bringing those intimate conversations to the foreground.
Yeah, that vulnerability hangover is real. Mm-hmm. When you're like, oh my gosh, was that too much? I mean, the good thing about recording the podcast is I can record it and sit with it before it goes out into the world. So, there have been some episodes like that for sure. One of the top downloaded episodes, by the way, is my story about bankruptcy. So, it just shows you that when you talk about the real stuff, the hard stuff, the human stuff, there are other people. I mean, there are hundreds, if not thousands of people that have listened to that episode that I will never know.
Yeah.
But something about it impacted them, or it gave them permission, or it reminded them that, they're not bad with money, or things didn't, they're not a screw up because they went through this too. Or if they're getting ready to face it, maybe it gave them some information about it. But, these conversations, they just humanize, to your point about we just want to feel. We live in a very curated society. I just want what's real. Don't get me wrong. I love a good aesthetic. I like my stuff to look nice too. But at the end of the day, if we just pull back a couple of layers and we create a space where people feel comfortable to share or feel a little bit more bold to want to speak up or talk about it, the unity that happens in those spaces is immeasurable. Right? They feel safe. They feel heard. Like with the women that I coach, they're like, I don't have anybody else that I can talk to about this stuff. Everybody in my world, everyone comes to me. Who do I go to? And so just creating this space and having these vulnerable conversations is an invitation to talk about the hard stuff, to talk about the big stuff. It's not always the bad stuff either. Sometimes it is the crazy idea or the next step in your life, or I'm ready to level up, or, I work with a lot of women that are looking to transition out of careers and into entrepreneurialism. That's a big shift. That's a really big shift. Who do you talk to about that? I'll raise my hand in that situation, but you know what I mean? So these vulnerable conversations, you don't have to share anything that you're not ready to. I also like to put that out there. Sometimes people are like, I'm going to have to go there, or I'm going to have to talk about it. It's like, you can talk about it when you're ready, but I'm going to continue to hold the container to let you know that when you're ready, the space is open.
So powerful and so needed. And I want to transition to speak specifically about the podcast that you recorded about conformity, and to share in light of what we're talking about. Like, I came to this podcast feeling very strongly that I wanted to talk about this, and then when I heard your episode on conformity, I felt like, okay, I want to talk to LauraAura about this. I want your take on it. So I had a profound insight into my own burnout process. I guess I'm on the green couch now. I'm just going to call that out.
Let's do it. I still have that green couch, by the way. It's in my office.
Oh, that's great. It sounds like a cool couch. So I am a therapist. I'm a master's level therapist, which means I don't have my doctorate. And I'm typically really fine with that and actually feel strongly that that's kind of important to have access to like master's level versus dedicating 8 years to 10 years of your life. So I went to this conference in person for the first time. This is at Boston College, which is a pretty like demanding academic space, and they have wonderful programs for counseling and psychology. And I got a room. I was like so proud of myself as someone with ADHD. I was like, I did the thing. I adulted. I did the thing. I had signed up for this conference months early. I got the early bird rate. Laura, I think you shared you have ADHD. You might understand how like intensely amazing that is.
I listen, I'm clapping because I'm like, yeah, the intention is there. And you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do that. And then like 3 weeks go by and you're like, shit.
Yeah.
I did and created 40 things in between the time that I saw that thing and the time that I actually got the thing. So kudos to you, my friend.
Yes, this is a big deal. I was so proud of myself. The night before, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning because I had these other like professional obligations. I had to go to a meeting, go to a rehearsal, throw a party, and then get ready for this conference the night before. So it's 1 a.m. I have this sinking feeling, remembering that the sessions I was planning on going to the next day were like breakout sessions from the actual event. I was like, did I sign up for these sessions? And so I was pouring through emails from May, and I'm like, I don't know if I did. And I have no way of knowing. There was nothing that I could go to and be like, you've signed up for this and you've signed up for that. So I'm like, all right, I got to put my big lady pants on and walk into that room and say, I have no idea if I signed up for these sessions. Can you help me out? So I did. And I happened to, and I'd never been on this campus before. Well, not in these spaces. So I'm already 15 minutes late because this is just how I operate. But also my GPS took me to like the wrong place first. It was just one of those days, right? I walk in, I'm like, I don't think I've signed up for these sessions, but can you let me know? Like, can you look me up? And they're like, no, you didn't. But they were lovely. They're like, just go ahead anyway. We'll take care of it, which was so wonderful. They were so understanding. So I walk into a room full of highly academic, highly intelligent, very learned PhDs, and every single one of them were saying, so after doing all the reading, like that's how they started all of their sentences. So you know that dream Caitlan, you're laughing. You could probably tell me what this dream is, where you're showing up to a class during finals week that you've never been to before and haven't done any of the readings for. I was living that dream. And I immediately clocked, I am filled with shame right now. I am filled with shame. And all I wanted to do was hide. And I wanted to like sink into this chair. I wanted to make sure nobody saw me. And then we had to do like the introductions. And I decided I'm just going to share that I'm having that dream right now. Everyone relates to this. And I did. And I got a laugh. And I was like, I haven't done any readings. I'm so sorry. I'm so excited for this conversation. And I'm so sorry that I didn't come prepared. And then an hour in, I asked a question that I thought was probably something everyone else was thinking, which was simply like, these are really amazing concepts that are really needed in the field of psychology, but, in community mental health where folks can't afford to be here, basically. I was not this articulate, let me tell you, because I was filled with shame and couldn't form sentences. And the whole room kind of turned around with this, I don't know what this look is, but it's like, oh, something controversial is happening right now. And everyone started to use the word critique, like, oh, this critique that you just brought up. And I suddenly felt like that's not what I meant. I didn't mean to critique anything. So again, filled with shame, right? And when I wanted to hide and I wanted to sink into my chair, but now everyone was looking at me. And so I had to like crawl back out. So this happened throughout the entire 4 days there. And it was this cycle of either do something that fills me with shame or share something that fills me with shame, the need to hide, but then choosing to kind of peek my head back out and then being met with this really lovely, like, what I should say too is after all the people were like, your critique of blah blah blah, people would come up to me afterwards and say, I'm really glad that you asked that question. It really needed to be asked.
Yeah.
So that was my experience over and over again. And it gave me this profound insight into this is why I was burned out before. Because I was asking the questions that I thought everyone else was thinking, but actually turned out to be maybe received as really critical of the system. And some people felt appropriately threatened. I understand. And some people were really glad they asked. That was my experience in the professional world. It landed me in the hospital briefly. So anyway, that was my green couch moment in LauraAura. I would love to hear like your thoughts on all of it.
Yeah. I mean,
help. Yeah.
Help.
Help.
It's a profound story. And I'm glad that you're sharing it here, because again, somebody is going to listen or is listening right now and is like, oh my gosh, I've been in that same position. I want to give you a couple of perspectives, if that's okay.
Please.
So the first thing that I want to just reflect back to you is how incredibly courageous, how much gutsy you displayed in every part of that story. The running late. A lot of people will be like, I'm late. I'm not going to show up now. I'm going to feel ridiculous. I'm going home. The realization that you're not signed up for any of those classes or the seminars. Oh, I'm not signed up for anything. I don't want to walk in that room and be that person. I'm going home.
Yeah.
Sitting around the table, bringing up questions that you think that people want to hear, but you're not sure, but you're curious about. Most people would just keep their hands down. That was gutsy, right? I mean, there's like 5 or 6 other pieces of this where you chose to make a gutsy move. So I just want to call you out for that in the best of ways, because sometimes in those shame cycles or in those areas where you're feeling very, very exposed, nothing looks like you're being gutsy or brave. It just simply looks like I'm a hot mess express, and now I've caused a ripple effect. So kudos to you for all of those things. The other thing that really, really stands out to me is, one, if we don't ask the questions and we don't question these things, whatever it is, it continues. Growth doesn't happen. Evolution doesn't happen. Innovation stops happening. Everyone should always be questioning everything. If it's not feeling right, or if there's an alternative way, or there's a new idea to grow or expand something, and you have that within you, I kind of feel like it's our responsibility individually to bring that up. And it takes an immense amount of gutsy to raise your hand, whether it's in a conference room or a seminar or a conference or in a one-on-one conversation. It takes a lot of guts to raise your hand and either suggest something or to question something. But without it, innovation dies. The other huge thing that comes out to me when you tell me this story is exactly where the freaking Green Couch Project was born. It's in those side conversations where the real shit's actually happening. Because I will bet that the majority of the people in that room probably agreed with you to some degree, or it got them thinking in a new way, or it made them say like, oh, I hadn't thought about it that way. There was probably a few key players that had big energy, I'm going to guess.
Oh, yeah.
Big energies, maybe some big egos, maybe the way that they carry themselves, maybe it's the letters after their name. It could be a myriad of things. And I'm not saying any of those things are wrong. I'm just saying that sometimes people have more dominant personalities that take over a room that makes everyone else shrink. So it probably felt like you were in a spotlight of like, oh shit, what have I done? But really, there were probably just a few key players that were really pushing back at you. But I'm going to guess the majority of that room was like, thank you. Thank you. Because this is the shit that's actually happening. So the shame is real. I hear you. But I hope that some of that has maybe started to turn a different part of the Rubik's Cube in your brain to make you say, okay, maybe this was actually innovation. I showed up for myself. That's one. I showed up for other people. And I questioned things. in the name of progressiveness, in the name of making things better. So
Yeah.
that's my story and I'm sticking to it. How does that land?
Oh, Laura, I mean, it's so powerful and so right. And I'm thinking about, just our listeners and you bring up something that I'd never thought about before. And even in the context of that experience, but in professional experiences or personal experiences, the big energies in the room
Mm-hmm.
and how, I mean, I'd love to just hear you speak more about that and stories that you've heard about how those energies have silenced or stopped progression or stopped evolution. Yeah, because I feel like that's really important to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I think it happens a lot in a lot of spaces, whether it's at, a networking group or a meeting or a conference room meeting or a client meeting or, if you're at a big event, whatever. I think it happens in a ton of rooms. I think it happens with all genders. I don't think it's mutually exclusive, but think about how many women stay quiet when a quote unquote dominant male is in the room. That lots
Yes.
of head nods here.
Yeah.
When, he or she is further along than me. They're higher up in the company. They're a C-level type of person. They're in charge of something. There's just this perception that just because someone is quote unquote like ahead or above me, that I don't have the ability to question something or to push back or to suggest something new. And I can understand that energy is very real, but it's also a perception. And if what we allow will continue. And so if we don't push back, if we don't challenge, if we don't present new ideas, then guess what? Everyone in the room is having that same experience. Whereas if one person raises their hand and asks that question, to your point, you raised your hand and said, "Hey, what about this?" You unknowingly gave the people in that room permission that they didn't need, but needed to see displayed. To know that, hey, we can be in a room with very high level educated people and still ask questions. That their title, that their presence, that the way that they're dressed doesn't mean that they're better than me or further along than me. We're having a shared human experience here, and it's a personal decision. There's no magic formula. Back to Caitlin, the early on in the conversation, there's no 3-step process that I can give you here to, if you just do this, then you can handle all the high level people in your life. But it's really like, what am I feeling? And it comes back to trusting yourself in those moments of like, I have something to say. I'm really feeling strongly about this. And if I don't say it, what is the cost of that? If we start to shift our energy and our perspective to that instead of what's going to happen if I do, things are going to continue to evolve, but in a way better way.
Laura, I just want to say, first of all, to call out what you're talking about in terms of self-trust, and especially like as we talk about this experience that you shared, Lyndie, of going into these very professional spaces that can be very intimidating, and as we also talk about people who are the human equivalent of bulldozers.
Yeah.
I think another thing that we can look at here is recognizing, not just trusting ourselves to be the person that we want to be in those moments, but also recognizing who and what we are giving power to. Because we can recognize all of the, expertise and the professional people in a room. And Lyndie, like you were talking about, recognizing that there's a lot of intelligent people here in this room, but also remembering that we're here in this space for a reason too. We have a place in these places. And I literally just had this conversation with my best friend yesterday. We were talking about being the friend to other people where, you help build their confidence and remind them of who they are, and you deserve to be in these spaces and to take up space in general, because we're not going to allow other people to determine what spaces you can and cannot be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I could not agree more with you, Laura, that it is that trust that we cultivate in ourselves to show up authentically and to ask the questions that not only need to be said for ourselves, but just feeling that intuition in the moment too. Because Lyndie, your recognition of these questions that need to be asked in those spaces and clearly called to you is such an important reminder for those moments as well. And also, let's also remember one of the key responsibilities of leaders is to be questioned.
Yes. Yes. I believe that so strongly. Caitlan, the idea of being allowed to take up space, such a powerful, and it's something, back in my like women's studies courses back in, the 1800s when I took them, um, we talked about like the female body and, and how like often response to taking up space is like be as little as possible, be as skinny as possible, be as weak as possible, right? So I do think this idea of taking up space has been a very radical one for years. And LauraAura, as we're talking about this, one of the things I'm so grateful for was like for the first time in my life, I was able to immediately recognize what was going on, like to be like, this is shame. This is me trying to come back out from my little hidey hole. This is me, feeling like, oh, that was okay. And then this is me feeling like, oh, that was really scary. So I was really grateful for that recognition. But when you're working with folks who are living this process, because I have a feeling I'm not the only one who goes through this cycle.
Not at all.
How do you talk with them about taking care of themselves afterwards or during?
That's a great question. I think it has to be an intentional process. It's not a one size fits all situation by any means. But I think the biggest thing is what you just said, is the awareness. Like even just acknowledging I'm feeling blank. I'm feeling shame. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling tired. Like even just giving that space to exist. Because what do we typically want to do? Get out of that discomfort as quickly as humanly possible.
Mm-hmm.
And it rarely means actually processing it. And it means putting it in a nice little bag and like drawstringing it tight, like strangling it, and then shoving it underneath the bed and hoping that it never comes back out. Except eventually you have so many of those bags underneath the bed that it comes spilling out, right? Like it's going to come up and out eventually. I promise you. And it's going to be in a less ideal way if it chooses and you don't. So
Yes.
acknowledging it first, and just like it helps to create what I feel like is a separation, that you are not shame. You're just experiencing shame. You are not fear. You're just experiencing fear. And if we create just like a little tiny gap between us and what that thing is, then we don't create an identity around it. I'm not a shameful person. I don't do shameful things. I'm just in moments where shame likes to pop up. And so just even having that little perspective of like, I'm noticing that I'm feeling shame right now. Literally, my body wants to do that. Breathe. I just created a simple breath, and that creates just a little bit of a gap where I can then just like pause with it. I can sit with it. What do I need to feel right now? What do I feel right now? And giving yourself permission to express that. Sometimes you need to cry. Sometimes you need to punch a pillow. Sometimes you need to literally step away in a conference and go into the bathroom stall or back to your hotel room for 20 minutes and just sit in silence. So if you acknowledge it, then what do I need? What do I need in this moment? And then giving yourself permission to do that. That, I swear to you, it changes something fundamentally inside of us, because we're no longer shoving it in the bag. We're letting it breathe, and then it passes, right? And it gives us the opportunity to think more clearly, to get back into the moment, to get back into our bodies, because we've given it the time and the space to actually exist.
Laura, I sincerely appreciate the way you describe this processing, and I feel like this message is so important for so many people because it covers so many different experiences, of course, beyond shame. But you said something that really reminded me of specifically something I've seen in language. And you're talking about we are feeling shame, not our shame. We're not a person to be ashamed of. And in the Irish and Scottish Gaelic languages, the way you describe emotions is not "I am sad." You say "I have sadness on me." So, for example, you would say like "Bronach orm," sadness is on me, not I am the emotion. And so this reflection in the language of emotions passing over us rather than embodying us is, I think, a wonderful reminder of that. Emotions are temporary and they're not part of our identity. They are a big part of what makes us human. And going back to what we were talking about initially, they also allow us to connect with people, having these very real conversations and sharing these immense joys and shared vulnerability and all of these experiences. And they're absolutely nothing to be shameful about, but it's bringing a light to these experiences that really helped us to connect with people. And yeah, I know we've mentioned this before already, but it is needed now more than ever, I think.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That was a really beautiful thing that you just shared, because it just helps us to create some distance between it instead of forming an identity around it or making it mean something about us. Like as we're talking about this, I can't help but think of a conference story of my own. Do we have time? Can I share with you?
Please, yeah. If I don't have a heart out, if you don't have a heart out.
I'm good.
Same.
So I just recently spoke at an HR conference, HR Indiana. Lovely event, fantastically put together, 10 out of 10 recommend. My slot was the last slot of the day, which is not my favorite. But, somebody's got to do it. Okay. Usually by that time of the day, a lot of people are checked out. They're tired, they're information overload, but I still had a really great crowd. Leading up to that, though, I've got the whole day. Okay. I like to get to an event the day before because I just like to get in the space and grounded and know what I'm doing. So I have all day long. I'm like, what am I going to do? Sit in my room all day? I mean, I could go wander around Indianapolis, but I'm here. My intent is to meet people and make connections. So I'm going to just attend sessions. I'm going to go. I'm going to be in the conference, right? And a lot of my speaker friends are like, don't do that. Don't attend the other sessions. And I'm like, oh no, I feel okay with it. Couple sessions in, my brain starts to get kind of noisy. Like, these are really great speakers. Am I in the right place? Are they sure they wanted me to be here? Gary Sinise was the keynote speaker of the event, who is Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump, for anybody that's not familiar with his human name. There was the imposter syndrome started knocking on my door. And I started to feel anxious. Like, anxiety was really presenting itself, and I could feel it. I usually feel it in my chest, and I could just feel it. My breath started to get kind of shallow. I'm like second guessing things. I'm like looking at things weirdly. And I was like, holy shit, I need to grab a hold of this. And so I did what I just shared a couple of minutes ago. I noticed that I'm feeling anxious. My brain is starting to get noisy. My chest is getting tight. I've got under boob sweat. Like, things are happening physically and emotionally. What do I need right now? I need to separate myself from this conference. Like, I just need a little bit of space. So there was a session before mine. It was about that time. And I was like, I've got like an hour and a half before I go on. What do I need right now? I need to go back to my room and I need to take off my pants. Listen, if you've ever had the buttons touching you the wrong way, and you just feel like confined in your jeans, and like it's just there's too many things touching me.
It's real.
I'm like, I need to take my fucking pants off and I need to be in a quiet room.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
I went back to my room. It was the perfect cool temperature. I took off my pants and I got in my bed and I pulled all the covers up on top of me. Yeah. I just needed to be like hugged and still and pantsless.
Yes. Yes.
And after about, I don't know, 15 minutes of just sitting there, literally, I could feel my nervous system starting to come down. I was doing some breath work. I like to do some somatic work where I like roll my tongue and make all kinds of weird sounds. That works tremendously well for me. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, I'm not anxious anymore. And I got out my iPad. I went through my slides. I got myself prepped. It's about 20 minutes before I go on. And I was like, okay, I'm ready again. I'm grounded. I've got my confidence back. The anxiety is gone. I went down into my room. I nailed the talk. I had such a great time. There was a great crowd in the room, even for 4:30 in the afternoon. And it turned out great. It turned out great. And I just wanted to share that as a real life example of noticing that feeling in the moment, asking yourself what you need, and then giving yourself permission to actually do that thing. I realize you can't always go back to a room and take your pants off, but you know what? You could probably take 3 minutes and go step outside and get some sunshine. You could go sit in a bathroom stall for 5 minutes and do some breath work. You could talk to somebody about what's going on that might be able to help you talk it out and talk it through. Yeah. So it's not getting re-regulated and getting back into your body doesn't always have to be this like day-long, week-long, month-long event. It's really in these little micro moments what you decide to allow yourself to actually do. Oh, and I did put my pants back on, just in case anybody was wondering.
I mean, I guess they probably are grateful.
That could be a gutsy presentation of its own.
Listen,
definitely.
Listen, we're not against it. We're not against it. Thank you so much, LauraAura. Like, what a powerful example of this radical process of listening to what you need and then doing it immediately. Like, what a radical concept. I think especially for women, especially for folks who haven't been given the permission by society to take care of themselves. And even the burnout book that we reference a lot here by the Nagoski twins, they talk about emotions have to go through the beginning, middle, and end. And so what you did was you let the emotions, by going into your body, asking it what it needs, and then honoring it, you allowed the emotion to work its way all the way through so that it wasn't still living in your body. It worked its way out. So you just gave a great example of like, this is how you manage burnout and keep it from becoming chronic.
Yeah.
But also this is how you attend to your needs as a human too, right? Like, we can talk about the science, but we also need to talk about, I personally can't afford to not meet my needs as a human anymore.
Yeah.
And that, I think the moment that I'm in right now, I will share that feels pretty radical because it's a little scary. It's almost like a road that like, oh, if I go down this road, where does that lead me? I already went down scary roads. I don't want to do that anymore, right? But I think the looking in, you can find that your needs are maybe bigger than you think, or that you might need to meet needs that are bigger than you want to meet in the moment. But I think the going in is such an important part of being human right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's the listening. It's being willing to slow down long enough to even ask yourself the question.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, again, what do we want to do? We want to work through it as quickly as possible because it's uncomfortable. What would have happened had I not honored that? I mean, I don't really know because I didn't go down that path, but I could imagine that the anxiety would have built. I would have been wearing a red turtleneck, not because I was wearing a red turtleneck, but because the redness of my chest would have came up into my neck.
Yeah.
I would have felt uncentered. I would have felt ungrounded. I would have felt off my game. I wouldn't have been as confident in my message. It probably wouldn't have landed the way that I intend or hope that it would. And the people in the audience that really needed to hear something that I was able to like go deep on wouldn't have received that message.
Yeah.
I can imagine that might have been an outcome. So, you know, if you think about like what's the alternative? Start asking yourself that. What's the alternative here? I'm going to keep stacking it up, or I'm going to lean into this uncomfortable moment to support myself right now. If you don't support yourself, who's going to do it? Nobody. And we end up burnout. We end up tired. We end up exhausted. We end up unfulfilled, and we end up doing more shit that we don't want to do.
Whew. I got to go and like think about this for a bit because it's so powerful. and just thank you. I appreciate, first of all, you sharing all of this and letting me sit on your green couch for a minute, but also the time that you've given us. I know we've kept you a little bit late, and I know your time is extremely valuable. So I'm just so grateful.
Happy to do it. Happy to be here. Someone, dare I say, maybe you, needed to really hear this today. So I'm happy to do it.
So many important messages. We are incredibly grateful to have you here in the Burnout Break Room, LauraAura. And this conversation has been so incredibly fulfilling. And as a reminder, I know we've talked about it in previous episodes, but the fundamental concept also that having needs does not make you high maintenance. You are allowed to have needs and listen to those and act on them.
Truth. I fully support that.
So, LauraAura, when you are not in the burnout break room, where can we find you? Where can people access you?
Yeah, LauraAura.com is probably the best place to find all things me. The Gutsy Podcast, of course, if you like this tone, if you like this style, you like this depth, the Gutsy Podcast is a great next step. It's on all the platforms. And then on social media, my handle is @thatLauraAura. I put out a shit ton of content all the time. So I'm making TikTok videos that go over into Reels. So if you want a little daily dose of this kind of energy and Gutsy moves forward, then those are a great place to find it.
Wonderful. Thank you, LauraAura. And Caitlan, when you're not in the burnout break room, where can we find you?
People can find me at CaitlinTruhella.com, as well as my socials from LinkedIn to Instagram to TikTok, where we have fun and talk about creativity and how I can support you as an artist, whether it's ideation sessions for a project that you're working on or your entrepreneurial ideas and ways that you can bring your fullest self to your work. And you can send me a message on Instagram or TikTok. Lyndie, when you're not in the burnout break room, where can people find you?
Yeah, so LyndieLaramore.com is the best place to find me to learn more about what I offer as a coach and consultant. You can also find me on Instagram or at Lyndie Laramore on LinkedIn. Same, reach out, drop yourself into my calendar, ask me whatever you'd like to ask me. And also please visit our Burnout Break Room sites on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Caitlan, you're all things Burnout Break Room. Please let us know what you think of our episodes. Share with friends. Comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts and requests. Thank you so much, LauraAura. It's been such a pleasure. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me.